This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. A victim of human trafficking is hunted down and killed by Chinese gangsters. A shooting in Passat causes outrage. And 2 young children are dragged under a truck. But firstly, it's our headline story, and this story is truly shocking for its level of barbarity, for there is no more horrific way to be murdered than to be drowned. It is truly a terrible way to die, but that is what happened this week, as police have announced they have arrested a Chinese national for kidnapping and murdering a fellow countryman by drowning him in Tonle Sap River. The suspect has been identified as Ji Li Min, who is a 29-year-old Chinese national working for a Chinese-owned casino in Sihanoukville. The dead man hasn't been identified. All we know is he's also Chinese and he's 30 years of age. Police say that at 10 a.m. last Saturday, 3 Chinese men were taking the victim by car from a Chinese casino in Peilin province to work at another Chinese-owned casino. Police surmise that the victim was probably being trafficked by members of the Chinese mafia to work in an illegal gambling operation. Approximately 1.5 hours into that journey, at about 11:30 a.m., they arrived in Kandal province and parked the car near the bank of the river. The police say the victim somehow managed to get out of the parked car and he then ran for his life. In a desperate hope to get away from the 3 gangsters. The man was desperate. His eyes were filled with fear, his heart beating out of his chest. He then saw a small house. Breathlessly, he ran into the villager's home near the river to try and hide, but he was spotted. The criminals closed in on him, so he jumped into the river, desperate to get away from the violent men. But soon one of the thugs caught up with him. Police say that the Chinese gangster then grabbed the victim's head and forced it underwater. The victim thrashed and struggled, but the criminal did not release him until he was dead. After killing the victim, the 3 criminals fled and headed towards Kandal province, leaving the dead body floating face down in the river. The horrified villagers who had witnessed this most barbaric murder alerted the district police, who came to the river to retrieve the victim's body. At current, 1 of the 3 suspects has been arrested, and police are still searching for the other 2. On this week's crime desk, a man tries to kill a police officer with an axe. Kids get dragged down the road by a lorry, and a mystery gunman on the loose in Passat. A man was charged this week with armed assault after he attacked a police officer with an axe. The suspect is a farmer, and the reason for the deadly assault is rather odd. You see, the farmer had struck up a relationship with a woman he had met on Facebook. Yep, Facebook's back. And they seemed to get along rather well, and the relationship did blossom. But there was only one problem. She had lied, and she had lied big. She was in fact not a single woman, but was married with 4 children, and she was married to a police officer. When the husband found out about his wife's affair, he issued a death threat to his rival. He said he would kill the farmer if he continued to contact his wife. The policeman went even to the extent of posting pictures of him with his wife and his children on social media in a vain attempt to enlighten the suspect about her real marital status. However, the police officer's plan backfired, as his photos only enraged the farmer. Now, this is where it gets a bit mental. Actually, I mean really mental. Because on the afternoon of November 6th, the suspect went to the school where the police officer picked up his children every day. The suspect walked towards the officer, an axe in his hand, and then he attacked him from behind. He hacked at him over and over and over again, inflicting very serious injuries. School children and parents looked on in horror as the man continued to bludgeon his victim with an axe. The police officer fell to the floor and soon blood pooled all around him. It was then the axeman fled the scene to make his escape. Now, at this point, I got to ask you, if you just attempted to kill a police officer in front of numerous witnesses, what getaway vehicle might you use? Maybe a car, one with the engine already running and good to go, or maybe a motorbike, much more agile in the old traffic. But no, not this guy. He got on a bicycle and pedalled away as quickly as he could, which, let's face it, isn't very fast. Needless to say, it was not long before he was detained, and he now faces a very long spell in prison. Now, do you remember this headline from last week? Drunk driver drags dead man for 100 meters in Phnom Penh. Well, here we are again with a remarkably similar story, but only worse. And I do mean an awful lot worse. As this week, this headline appeared: 2 school children seriously injured in Phnom Penh after being dragged under truck. Yes, 2 school kids were mutilated as their tiny bodies were dragged under the wheels of a very large lorry. And it's not a case of a broken bone or simple abrasions. Both kids are now in hospital and both are in critical condition. The incident took place at 8 p.m. along Dong Neep Road in Phnom Penh. Witnesses at the scene said a white Hyundai truck was seen driving along the concrete road in a west-east direction at high speeds. And the vehicle turned onto Dong Neep Road. When it turned, the container lorry suddenly swerved to the left as it seemed to lose control, and it hit the small children. It then continued on and dragged the motorcycle with the 2 children for several meters. What those kids went through must have been horrifying. The driver stopped the lorry, and on this occasion did not run away. He stayed at the scene of the accident and he helped the police with their inquiries. He has been detained and he is waiting further questioning. Panic ensued as a gunman opened fire in a busy area of Passat. The shooting itself occurred on the 17th of December, but it's only now that we're getting more details on this case. The incident took place in the mid-afternoon at the local market in Far Sar village. Sources that have spoken to us at the Khmer Times have told us some details, but the picture that is emerging is still more than a little bit hazy. But this Wild West-style shooting may well be linked to a bicycle accident. A witness states that at approximately 2 p.m. on National Road 5, there was a traffic accident when a car hit a bicycle and caused the cyclist very minor injuries. Other witnesses say they saw a man dressed in civilian clothes brandishing a handgun. And then there was a second man who was wearing military uniform, and he was armed with a baton. It seemed that these 2 men were arguing over that incident. The man in the military uniform tried to get away in a small car, but the man with the gun opened fire on the car, riddling it with bullets. The car crashed, and the other men then dragged the driver out of the vehicle and beat him violently. This incident is exceedingly worrying, as the firing of a handgun in broad daylight in a busy town shows a level of violence rarely seen in the kingdom. Gun crime has seen a great reduction in the past few years, and Sihanoukville has made great strides to enforce law and order. So there is great concern that this kind of crime has reared its ugly head in a new territory. As of yet, there have been no arrests, but police are still investigating. Now, before we go to our final story this week, I want to do something I've never done before. I want to put on the screen a photo seen in one of our previous stories. The story was of how a drunk driver dragged a dead man 100 meters down the road. So let's take a closer look of the photo featured in that story, because to me this is the best photo I have seen in all the hundreds, if not thousands, of news stories I have reported on. And here it is. This image captures so very perfectly the devastation drunk drivers cause. After all, a picture does more than 1,000 words. Please note the grieving woman in black, unable to explain the incredible pain she feels to a journalist. Below her is a relative, another woman, her hands clasped in prayer and in anguish. Next to her, a man has his head bowed in utter disbelief at what he is witnessing. It really is a moment in time that is worth pausing for a closer look at. I give it my Photo of the Year award, and it truly is a moving image. But now we must leave all that agony and pain behind, as we wish to finish on a positive note this week, and that is the kingdom's economic growth is forecast to hit 6% this year, and as an investor I'm pleased at that, as interest rates at the bank of late have been a trifle low. The Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy have projected that Cambodia's economic growth in 2025 will be 6% or maybe a little bit more. Cambodia has consistently maintained high growth of late, leading to remarkable strides in poverty reduction and lower middle income status. So it's the end of the year, but the future looks bright, very bright indeed. And being the last newscast of 2025, I would like to say from all of us at the Khmer Times, a very happy new year to you. And may 2026 be bountiful and bright. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
And here we are at the weather, and you may well have noticed there I got the years wrong when wishing you all a happy new year. I do apologise, but weirdly that does bring us to our photo of the week, because somebody wrote into us and asked, am I artificial intelligence? Well, that balls up at the end answers the question. No, I'm not. I'm human, and I've made a huge mistake. But what can I do? That's the nature of being human. So let's slide that error to the side and forget about it and have a look at the weather. And what we see is there's smatterings of rain here and there. There's plenty of cloud. And your high this week will be 28 degrees.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly Roundup.